3:07 a.m., you're lying in bed, the room is dark, the world is silent, and your brain decides this is the moment to replay a conversation from yesterday. Not the good conversation, the embarrassing one, the one where you said something slightly awkward and the other person probably forgot about it 11 seconds later. But you're still there, still stuck, still awake. Here's the question nobody asks. Why does this only happen at night? You don't spiral like this at 3 p.m. At 3 p.m., you're fine. You're functional. You're a normal human being who has their life mildly together. So what changes? What flips the switch? Turns out, your brain isn't malfunctioning. It's doing something much stranger, something it was never designed to hide from you, but somehow always does. Let's talk about it. During the day, your brain is busy. It's dodging traffic, answering messages, pretending to care about a meeting that could have been an email. It's managing input constantly. That's its job. But at night, the input disappears. No notifications, no tasks, no noise, just you. And a brain that suddenly has nothing left to manage. And a brain with nothing to manage doesn't rest. It searches. This is the part almost nobody talks about. Your mind doesn't shut off at night. It shifts mode from handling life to reviewing life. And reviewing is a polite word for what actually happens because your brain doesn't review the good stuff. It goes straight for the wreckage. That thing you said. That thing you didn't say. That decision from 3 years ago that still doesn't sit right. Why? Why the wreckage and not the wins? Because your brain isn't built to make you happy. It's built to keep you alive. And somewhere in its ancient wiring, unresolved problems still register as danger, which means at 3 a.m., lying still, doing nothing, your brain treats an awkward text message from last Tuesday with the same seriousness it would treat a predator in the grass. That's not an exaggeration. That's biology. But here's where it gets stranger. There's a chemical shift happening in your body right now that most people have never heard of. As night falls, cortisol, your stress hormone, should be dropped. Melatonin should be rising. Your body should be preparing to power down. But if you're anxious, if your mind is already looping, cortisol doesn't fully drop. It lingers, quietly, in the background, like a low hum you can't quite hear but somehow still feel. And that lingering stress hormone does something almost cruel. It keeps your brain just alert enough to keep thinking, but too tired to think clearly. You're not sharp at 3 a.m. You just feel like you are. That's the trap. Your brain, running on stress chemicals and exhaustion, convinces you that this right now is when you're finally seeing things clearly. That this washed out, sleep-deprived, emotionally raw version of you has finally found the truth about your life. But that's not clarity. That's distortion wearing clarity's face. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. The conclusions you draw at 3 a.m. feel more real, more true, more you than anything you think in daylight. Why? Because darkness removes context. No sunlight, no distractions. No other people to compare your thoughts against. Just you, alone, in a room. With a brain that's decided tonight is the night to relitigate your entire existence. But then something strange happens. Scientists have a name for this. The hyper-associative state. At night, your brain starts connecting ideas that have no business being connected. A weird look from a coworker gets linked to a memory from high school. A minor mistake today gets fused with your biggest fear about the future. Your brain, starved of new input, starts wiring random dots together and calling it insight. This is why 3 a.m. thoughts feel like revelation. Your brain genuinely believes it has uncovered something profound about who you are. But most of the time, it's just noise dressed up as meaning. And that wouldn't be so dangerous, except for one thing. You believe it. You believe the version of yourself that shows up at 3 a.m. more than the version that shows up at 3 p.m. Even though the 3 a.m. version is running on less sleep, more cortisol, and zero outside perspective. Isn't that strange? The least reliable version of you becomes the version you trust the most. But here's where it gets deeper. Here's the part that isn't really about sleep at all. Think about when the spirals hit hardest. Not on your best nights, not when life feels settled. They hit when something is unresolved, a relationship you're unsure about, a job you're not sure you should have taken, a version of yourself you quietly suspect you're failing to become. Your brain isn't torturing you randomly, it's pointing at something. The 3 a.m. spiral isn't a malfunction. It's a symptom. A signal flare from a part of you that doesn't get airtime during the day, because during the day you're too busy performing your life to actually examine it. So the silence isn't creating the problem. The silence is just the first time all day you're quiet enough to hear it. That's the part that should really sit with you. You're not broken at night, you're just finally listening. And maybe that's the most uncomfortable truth of all, that the parts of yourself you avoid all day are still there, waiting, patient, until the world goes quiet enough for them to finally speak. So what do you do with that? You don't fight the thought. Fighting it at 3 a.m. just feeds the loop. Because your brain, remember, is exhausted and distorted and desperate for resolution it can't actually give you right now. Instead, you write it down. Not to solve, just to release. Get it out of the loop and onto paper, where it can wait for daylight. For the version of you that has context, energy, and perspective. Because the version of you at 3 a.m. was never meant to make decisions. It was only ever meant to notice. So next time you're lying there, wide awake, spiraling over something small that suddenly feels enormous, remember this. You're not going crazy. You're not weak. You're just a tired brain, alone in the dark, finally quiet enough to hear everything you've been running from all day. And maybe the real question was never, why do I overthink at night? Maybe it's this, what are you avoiding so well that it can only reach you when everything else goes silent?